Hello everyone, let me just get the music going. So firstly, I've changed my music settings. So if it's too loud, let me know. If it's too quiet, also let me know. But we're kind of going to continue where we left off last time. I would say last week, but it was in fact not last week, because I had some technical difficulties, so to speak. So I'd initially planned to organize this file off screen. Listen, how are you? But I have quite frankly not had time to organize these files. Does seem a lot loud. Okay, let me change that. Let's try. Why is my keyboard not working? Right. How's that? Still too loud? We can change that a bit low as well, but let's see how it is now. Maybe 15, then leave it at that. But yeah, bottom line is let me know. Okay, better. I can lower it even more, but last time I had it so soft that it was not visible. Well, visible. You couldn't hear it in the recording at all. But if this is good, we should be good to go. Right, so I've not organized this file. I was going to organize this file, but I have not had time. It's been a busy 2 weeks. So we're going to work with what we have, and I'm quickly going to figure out what I did last time, because with, how do I put this, with Houdini specifically, while you're actively working in the file, everything makes sense. But as soon as you actually get into things and leave it for a day or two, or in my case 2 weeks, it becomes difficult to figure out what the plan was. So let's see. I was going to implement a control at the bottom. So I've currently got one that goes the height and the width, and so on, but I'd like one that adjusts more things. I had such a brilliant plan. Alright, so I also wanted one that controls the height of this pedestal, so let's start with that. That should be easy enough to implement. So that is, which transform is it? That's that one. Okay. So we're going to take the control at the bottom here, and I'm going to add another one. So if it's a parameter, and it's switched over to my other screen. See if it's going to let me switch it over. Brilliant. Right, so I'm quickly going to skip that song because it's annoying me. Okay, so we've got height, we've got width. So we need another height. It's also going to be a float. So take that one, and that's going to be height pedestal. So that's going to be that. Copy that over, and we're going to take that, and we're going to take this value and paste it up here in this height. Right, as expected, it goes flat because we've got a 0 value down at the bottom here, but now we can adjust this to our heart's content. Right, so I changed the proportions last time, but I'm not completely sure whether I'm happy with it now, because initially I had a certain amount for the archways, but I've just realized something. These archways are upside down. The archways were meant to be pointy side up, Now I wonder when I messed that up. Probably because I built it flat. Okay, wait. So we built it flat, and then transform does what? Okay, it moves it to the exterior of the thing. So let me template the file maybe. Right. Now I'm not happy with it being the wrong way up, so we're gonna have to change that. Now the simplest way would be possibly here. Possibly here. So that is on the z-axis, I believe. So that's going to be rotate 360. Is that going to rotate? Not 360, 180. Right, so the problem with rotating it at 180 is pivot is the bottoms. Pivot is at the bottom, so now it's, well, quite frankly, even more at the bottom. So, let's think. Am I going to change the rotation of this at any point? Probably not. So because I'm not going to change the rotation at any point, I'm going to leave it the way it is. We could probably... What is the height on this? Let's see. Let's go to front view. So my thought process here is here. I'm just going to take the height and then increase it by that amount. So that's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a bit. Let's start with 5. Just see what it does. Okay, that's going to be -5, I believe, or not. Right. Plan B. How are we going to approach this? I could do a copy and transform rather than just a transform, but that's not going to work either because then it's going to create a duplicate. Really don't want to move this up manually, but let's just see something else. So, okay, so the problem was as follows. Firstly, there is a top and a bottom, and both is visible. So when I moved it, moved it 5 by 5, it moved both up. But when I moved it -5, it moved both down. Now the problem with that is, if both moves down, it looks like 5 and -5 both go down, but they don't. It's just the top-bottom ratio. I'm explaining this very badly, wait. So what I did was I took 5 and that went both directions, but I only saw the one at the bottom, right? So when I did -5 and this one, no, that's the wrong one, that's the wrong channel, right? So when I did -5, it looked like it moved even further down than 5 did, but the reality is it's just because both moved and I've got a transform at the bottom that copies it to the top. So yeah, to explain what happened there. In conclusion, so Houdini has a bunch of different measurement units as Maya and Blender and everything has. So where I went wrong is I counted the small squares, which would actually be a 0.2 value, I believe. So I was supposed to count the bigger squares, let's say. So yeah, bottom line is it's fixed. So let's leave it at 1 for a moment and just see where that is. No, 0.1. No. I really don't like like the fact that this is not procedural. I don't like that at all. But we're going to work with it. Because if I try to fix this now up in the upper nodes, it'll break everything. I can do it, but it is time consuming, and quite frankly, I think you'll all be bored watching me try and rearrange these nodes and alter everything from scratch to be the right way. So we are going to cope with the transform. Right, so now let's see what we've actually got working area. Right, so that all suits me fine. The next thing we want to implement is pillars. And I don't like that these are intersecting in the corners. So I might want to fix that either now or later. Let's do later, it's going to take too long. Right, I'll say it's going to take too long. It's probably not going to take too long, but it'll take time. Because I'll have to adjust the outer frame, outer archway, the inner archways, and most likely the flower as well. Man, I thought Maya was intimidating. Houdini looks 10 times worse. Houdini is very intimidating, but if you actually go and break it down, it's not that complicated. For example, right, the start of the archway is just a line. Then for the line to actually turn into an archway, we need a couple of things, because the line doesn't come with normals by default. So you create an attribute for it, basically saying, okay, this line has normals. And to visualize it, the normals point in a certain direction. I specified the direction. And then this is very low poly, right? So we've only got a point at the top and the point at the bottom. So you need a form of, let's say, subdivision. So that would be a resample. There is a subdivision node as well, but in this case I use resample, not only for the extra points, but also for curve view. Now, what is curve view? Curve view is a form of a gradient, and in this case, think Substance Painter. I'm going to use it to mask, or you can do it in Photoshop as well, and any software with masking actually. So yeah, basically the gradient determines the mask, and then if we go into the attribute var, I basically take the points. So I need a couple of different information for this. I need the point information, I need normal information, I need the curve view. So the curve view is the mask, but this system doesn't come with curve view built in by default. So I just use the bind, which is a form of import. Inconvenient about Houdini is all your different sections of Houdini has a different name for importing, and it's very rarely just called import. It's just one of those things. So that's a curve view, and then we've got a ramp. That'll be the actual, let's say, black to white mask, and then basically displace along normals, or displace along normals does exactly what it says. It displaces the points in the direction of the normals, and then the amount is set by the what do you call it, ramp. And so from there it's just a mirror across, and then I did a join because there's vertices on top of each other here. And then orient along curve basically just says, okay, the normals need to follow the curve. The transform is just to make it, I believe, narrower. Yeah. So yeah, that's basically it for all the archways. It's all built with lines, including the flower. Actually, the flower is also built with a line, the same system. I just used a thing that basically duplicates it in a circle. If you've used Maya before, you'll probably know about duplicate spatial. It's basically duplicate spatial, but better. It is intimidating until you've used it for a while, and then it makes sense. But I say that, but I think Houdini is one of those software where, now don't get me wrong, I love Houdini, but it's one of those software where the second you think you've got it, you realize you don't know anything at all. So the reason I chose this project specifically is I've used so many of these techniques before, in the sense of all these cathedral type of elements I've done in Houdini probably 2 or 3 times. If it was anything else I had to procedurally model in Houdini, I would in fact not do it. So make of that what you will. but it is enjoyable, and I know it's not the fastest way of doing things, right? It's not the fastest by any means. Let's turn normals off so I can actually see what's going on here. But having said that, it's so worth learning because it's so fun. And then obviously advantage, because I don't know who the original creator of this concept is. In fact, it's already a 3D model. I'm just drawing inspiration from it, so to speak. But if I've set up the nodes correctly, which I hope I have, it'll be relatively easy to build one of these and have the ability to create all of them. Because it's all the same design, just arranged differently. They've all got the archways. The only real difference here is, for example, this one doesn't have the archways at the bottom. This one has a flat bottom rather than a curved one. So make of that what you will. Right, so while I orient my thoughts on how I actually want to approach the pillars, I think it's a good time to do the top. Now, am I going to do it as complex as the top on this one? We'll see. Because, well, it depends how I do it right. If I do it with a line, it'll be, I would say, quite difficult to get this shape. But I could also do it with a curve. So that is the other option, rather than a line, because you can draw a curve. Downside of that, yes, you can alter it, but it's not quite as procedural. So let's try both methods, possibly. Let's try both, why not? But let's start with the line, because I've already got the nodes set up for it, and I've not used curves in Houdini in almost a year. So let's try and avoid that. So I'll need the orient. I don't think I'll need the transform. I don't know what's going on with the music, by the way. I'm playing a random game playlist because copyright. So yeah, we'll work with it. Right, so this was the start of the petals, which is actually not a bad start for the shape. So I'm going to just try to decide, because the easiest will be to split the top, the shape out with the top very squiggly shape. Very squiggly shape is a very descriptive description of it, but anyway, not the best description, but we'll work with it. Right, so the easiest will be to split it out, because if it's split out, it's easier to alter down the line, in theory. So let's do that. Right, so we've got that. I'm in fact going to hide everything else. I don't want to template it. Where's the template? There it is. So turn that off. And we'll see about the rest. Right, so we've got this. And I, in fact, do not want the center of this. Where is that coming from? Attribute, resample. That's fine. Mirror is fine. It's a join. Okay, I'll remove the join for now. If I need, I in fact do know where it's coming from, I think. No, I don't want it to connect. Ha! Got it. Right, so I'm setting for the flower specifically to fold the area between the lines, just so it's easier to get a circular shape that's one piece of geometry. So to explain that, because explaining without showing in Houdini is an interesting experience. So we've got the line, we've got the attribute create for the normals, we've got the resample, we've got the attribute drop that determines the shape. And then we've mirrored it across. Now, I wanted the curve to actually have polygons, at least temporarily, because I copied these around in the circle, copy and transform, and moved it, and then I booleaned it together, and then dissolved the interfaces, just to get something to sweep later on. If I had not had the geometry in the center, the lines would just go, basically look like it does at the boolean point, but without the faces. So it would look like that, and if you try and sweep that, the sweep doesn't know what to do with all those edges. So I basically dissolved them, got rid of them, and then deleted the face just to have their exterior to later then get swept. So that's where that's coming from, and that's a downside of duplicating your network, because for some areas you forget what you did, and oftentimes, although you're duplicating things, you don't necessarily reuse it identically the next time. For example, for the original archway, I didn't have the interfaces because I didn't need them. So in this case, I did need them, so I added them. But now in my final case, which is for the roof, I don't need them. So because I don't need them, I need to go and remove them. Especially because as I've said, I haven't opened this file in a while, so due to that, I have forgotten what I did. So it's always a bit of trial and error, but that's half the fun. Right, so we've got that. Then we're going to change the shape, because that shape will not work for the roof. So that's going to be in the attribute fob. And then I believe this will probably be all the way at the top. And then it kind of has like an indented shape over there at the top, so maybe something, maybe not that extreme, but something like that. I actually don't like that shape. So I'm going to mess with it just a little bit till I'm happy with the shape. I'm also pretty sure my headphones are dying, so we're not off to a good start here. But I'll see what I can do about that later. Hopefully it's just one side, because what did I do? Okay. Because I don't know about you guys, but mine tend to die one side first and then the other side. So we'll see. I'm also going to turn on the AC because it is in fact 34 degrees Celsius today. Don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's warm. It's very warm. Well, I'd say that. But if it's below 30 degrees, I complain it's cold. So there's always that. Right, getting back on track here. So we've got the archway. I am in fact going to remove the mirror. Now, the reason I'm removing the mirror is I'm going to duplicate this in the circle. And if there's a mirror, there's just going to be a lot of overlapping. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to use... I don't know if it's called a revolve, possibly. It is, in fact, called a revolve. Because Houdini is brilliant. Right, so, I would say we need to reverse that. We don't actually need that many polygons, but, and I don't like 12 as a number, we're going to go with 16. Because for these types of shapes, I prefer sticking to 8, 16, 32, those types of numbers. Right, so we've got that, and then the next thing is every second one should in theory be selected and extruded. Now, I've done this, but I cannot remember how I did it, and nor can I remember what the node is called, because you do have a node for pattern selection. So I'm going to spend a second trying to find it, and if I do not, we're going to forget about it. So it will probably be under geometry. Won't be a convert. Could be a polygon something. Hmm. It's not a boolean, it's not primitive, it's not a transform. Sort. Either sort or lab sort. I think. I could be wrong, but I think and I hope. Right, sort by vertex order, random shift by attribute. Right, let's see. Not vertex order. Can do random. I actually don't know what that's doing. It's not a sort. What is it though? I don't think it's a sort. Let me just see what the spreadsheet is saying. So split that top to bottom, and that's going to be geometry spreadsheet. Hello, don't die. Thank you. Right, so inspectors, geometry spreadsheet. I'd like to see what the attributes on this are, and point group. So that's a point group. Point group is not going to help me, so that's only going to select points. And selected points won't work because we're not looking for points, we're looking for polygons. Right, so it's not a sort node. It could be, it's not going to be a resample. It could be, I wonder if you have something for pattern. Attribute, promote. No, it's not pattern. It's really bothering me that I do not know what it is. Group by range. Start. Okay, so that selects that way. So we are looking for primitives, so that's fine. Select one. But I don't want it to go that way. I wanted to go from top to bottom, which is very inconvenient. Offset. That's not helping me very much. The start is there, and there has to be a way to do this. Right, I can't remember how to do this, so we're going to work with it without it. Because there's a way of manually doing it, alright? I can manually go and select every second edge, but that's going to be very time consuming and very annoying. But. Your next best friend when it comes to Houdini is Googling, so I'm going to quickly Google, and if Google does not very quickly give me an answer, we're going to move on. So how to select every second polygon. Houdini. I don't think there's a way of procedurally doing it. At least not one that's straightforward. But see. Let us see. Because this is similar to what we want to do. We can, I don't know. Group, create group. Expression. I have done it with a group expression, I think. Maybe. before? No. Okay, I definitely can't remember. So we're going to leave it at that. I'll figure it out at some point and do some more research on it, and then we'll do that at some point. Once I've figured it out. Maybe I think of something in the meantime, but I doubt it. So we'll work with our very, very basic shape for now. Right. Okay. Right, so we've got that. Next thing we need is the piece on the top. So that's in theory more or less the same principle. Something worth noting is this is very narrow. So we're probably going to have to either do a we're going to have to do a transform regardless, but we can either make the original line taller. So then by comparison it doesn't look as wide, or we could potentially shape it as it is currently, because if we go here, let's see, that's very wide, so if you make it taller it's fine, or I can leave it like this and then just shrink it down later. In this case I think I'm going to make the line taller rather than the other way around, because I want to visualize it from the start. So we're going to do a length of what? Let's try 4. Right, so that is not quite correct. Why did you break? Why did you break? Wait, let's see. I'm going to duplicate that across, and I want normals, and I want resample. So why is it doing that? Okay, so this works if the attribute create that's or not. It's not the attribute create. It's the resample. It is the resample. Right. So I'm just quickly going to see how many points there are, because this is a very complex shape, right? So we do want a lot of points. So this is to determine one maximum segment. So let's start with 32. Why not? And now if I connect this up, this will actually work. Brilliant, it does. Right, so I'm going to view it from the front. Now I'm probably not going to create a one-to-one to this, but there are some aspects I do like. So we're going to shrink that down to say that much, and then this is probably going to be a very strong curve before it goes out. So I do like the almost spherical shape in the center here. So we'll try and get something similar. I don't think B-spline is maybe the best. Bezier would probably be better. I am going to reset this as soon as I remember how. There's a way to reset it. No, it's open like that. Right, so I really don't want to manually go in and delete all of these, but because I can't remember how to reset it, I'm just going to do it this way. Not the most efficient process, but at this point I don't have many options. Right, so we've got that. That's working. So let's add one at the end, probably. Now the end is probably going to be a pretty sharp point, so that's probably going to go to 0. And then let's start with the big shape. So the next big shape would probably be the sphere shape, as we mentioned before. So to get that, we're going to probably do something like that. No, don't go through. I don't want this to go all the way down to the bottom though. There is a way of disconnecting it, but I can't remember how. This is going to be a common theme here. Most things, I need to do something, I do not know how, or I can't remember how. But that's a half the fun of Houdini. Most of it is play with it until it works. It's very rarely going to work from the start. So let's do that, and then I'm going to create an increase there. Maybe that, don't want more. I really don't want more of that one. Maybe do something like this. I like that shape quite a lot. It's too wide at the top, but we can change that. So let's do that, and then this one. Making the handles right. It's control. You fix it with control. So that's another thing you can do. Again, I'm not quite sure what shape I'm going for. For now, it's just getting something there. The other thing I don't like right now is typically with this type of shape, you want the widest point to be at the bottom. And currently, so I'll need to fix that at some point, but let's just get some sort of shape in that works. And then we can go from there. So another thing that's probably going to be a problem at some point is, yes, it's not going through here, but it is almost going through. So it is too narrow in general, but that's going to be a later. Shocking how many of these little divots there are. This might have been
Hopefully so. Let me know. Hopefully that's working. If not, well, we'll deal with it. But I was right. My headphones were in fact dying. So, we're working with desktop audio here, which is not ideal. Yeah, we'll work with it. I might have to turn music off, but we'll see. Right, so I need a way to select this thing. So first problem is there's multiple. I'm back, yay! I should have known I need to charge my headphones. I forgot. Quite frankly, I forgot. It's one of those things. So we're going to merge these in a way. So let's try to join. That is in fact not what I want to do. Go back. We're not going to reverse music too loud. Let's turn that down. Is the music better now? Hopefully yes. Let's see, how can I finish? I don't want end caps. Why did this turn the music further down? Okay, yeah, let me know about the music. If it's still too loud, I'll probably turn it off, to be quite honest. I struggle to work with music, funnily enough. Right, so we've got that. We need a way of getting rid of all those points that are overlapping. So maybe close dog. No. We've changed something else. So I do not want that to be coming through. It is all for monitoring. Right. Focus, 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 focus. So that's not doing anything. Let's try copy to points, but there it is too many things. It really is. So because I've got so many settings and half the things I don't know what they do. and it's those things like, for example, on my headphones specifically, the music is pretty much silent. I can't hear it at all because I can't work with music. But for you guys, it's loud. If I change my settings, you guys can't hear my music at all, and it feels like the music is literally screaming in my ears. Now, having said that, streaming is fun. It's nice. It's a way for me to actually work on a project that isn't a commission or for a client or for some type of project, in the sense of I could do something that's low pressure. Not so, I say low pressure. Um, if you do it in Houdini, it's not low pressure because it's insanely difficult, but it does give me something to talk about. But the actual streaming technical side is, for me personally, very difficult because I struggle with that side of things. I struggle with technology that does not consistently work as it's supposed to. For example, right, I can leave. My settings are identical, right? My settings are identical to my last stream. The last stream, my music was silent. This stream, it's not. So it's the top point. But for now, we're just going to take the target point to copy to, so that's going to be that one. And then this one is going to go there. And that looks insane. That looks absolutely insane. Why do I have dots when I do not want dots? Let's go. Come on. That's very annoying. That is very annoying because those dots are huge and we are constantly seeing them. So we don't want any of those. There's a way to turn this off. I'm hoping I don't have to close the software down because that is a fix for it. But okay. Let's start with actually shrinking this down so we can have easier time seeing things. So this is going to be, let's say, 0.1. Just to have something, and then we can copy. Now, as you can see, it copied to literally everything. It copied every single point in existence, which is quite frankly not ideal. We don't want that. So, let me think. Let me think. Okay, so that's a fix for it. Back in instance. So at least we can see what's going on now. Now we've got a few different problems. It's Houdini. Of course, there's a few different problems. Granted, fixable problems, but problems nonetheless. The first problem is it needs to be vertical. It needs to point up. And currently, it does in fact not point up. So we could transform it and flip it so it points up, or we could fix the normals on the roof. So let's quickly see what direction the normals are in fact pointing in the right direction. So is there a setting here for, there is in fact not a setting for it. Would have been very convenient if we could say it needs to be in the direction of the normals, and there should be, but I common thing, I cannot remember how. So we're going to work with that. Let's for now just flip it up. So that's going to be on the which axis? That's probably going to be X, and that's going to be 90 degrees, I believe. Right, so this is following the curve. I in fact do not want that. So what happens if we turn orient along curve off, and then get rid of this transform? Okay, that is in fact pointing up. That's a good start. And now the next problem is, as we've established, let me just turn this perspective on, otherwise I can't really see what I'm doing. I need to find a way to condense this down to 1. Now, as we've established, there's multiple points on top of each other at the tip of the roof. So what that'll mean is, even if I isolate my selection to the top of the roof, I'm still going to have the problem where I've multiple pieces. Because let's say there's 5 points, then there will be 5 duplicates of this here on top of each other. Now, yes, I can't see the duplicates, but the duplicates are there. So we've got 2 problems to solve. We need to find a way to get rid of the extra points, but also we need to find a way to isolate the selection. Now, there's multiple ways we could do this. We could potentially create a group for the top point. And we can do it one of 2 ways. We could create a bounding box, and basically everything within the bounding box gets selected. Therefore, that'll be where we can specify it to copy to. But the problem with that is as follows. It's not procedural. It's not procedural. And then the other way we could do it is we could probably, I wonder if we add a name to the top. Right, so wait, let me see. So that's 1, I believe. Or is that 0? Okay, so 1 is at the top. If we, after the resample, 4 up as it goes upwards. Right, what am I going to do with that information? I do not know. But that means the highest number is the number we want. So let's try sort. Now, did it work for selecting every second thing as I wanted it to? No, it did not. But maybe this time it will not fail. It was it a sort though? I don't think so. Let me see what that does. Okay, so here we can reverse the primitive order, which is fine, but that's not quite what we want to do. What was the other node? What was the other node? Not a sort. It's not a resample. It's group arrange. Group by range. So that's going to be group by. If I can spell, that would be. It's really going to make me type it all out. So that's going to be group. Now that was an unnecessary amount of effort, but we got there. Backtracking a bit. I don't think anyone is ever ready to start streaming. I think you get bribed into it. I say bribed, I mean blackmailed into it. And then you do it and kind of get used to it. It's very intimidating to stream. It's very difficult to do something live because things go wrong by nature. They go wrong especially often. Now, is that a bad thing? Yes. Yes, it is because it's stressful. But it also teaches you to adapt to that kind of high pressure situation where things can go wrong and you're kind of forced to fix it as quick as possible. So, yeah. Right, so start is going to be 0, end is going to be, or we can flip it. I'm trying to select one of 14. Why did it work before and it's not working? Points. Trying to remember how this even works, which is highly inconvenient. If I could get it to select anything at all, that would be nice. Right, so what happens if we invert? Do vertices, that does nothing. So by default it's 0 and 0. In theory, so what is it grouping? Let's just start by giving it a name. That's going to be, hopefully at the end of this, top point. So let's do a top point. So we know that. Now, it's giving us a attribute or group attribute, so a way of specifying everything in this. Everything selected here is part of the group, basically. And it gives it kind of a common theme. So at this stage, it's selecting everything. Right. So I just can't see the selection. I just can't see the selection. But let's try something else. There is a way of selecting things by group. How? Okay, we'll work with it for now. So we're going to group that by point, connectivity. What does that do? Nothing at all. So that's going to be a group range, and then we're going to copy to points, and then hopefully. Now that goes where? Points to copy to. Right, but we've got the join at the bottom here, the revolve. I'm going to avoid these two just to see if that copy to points actually works. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to go down to copy to points. And at this stage, it's copies everywhere, but that's to be expected because I did not specify a group. There is no group to specify. How convenient. So I'm losing my group. Why am I losing my group? Oh, that's why. wrong thing selected, so that's going to be, which one? This one, I think. Right, so that's still not giving me the group. Why aren't you giving me the group? Why? Okay, so we're definitely getting some sort of information here, but just not the information we need. So we're getting a group because we can see the value changing here, which means there's some information, but I don't think we have got the right information. How to combat that? I think this is going to be a scenario where we're going to have to get back to it. So what I'm going to do while I think about how to tackle this is I'm going to turn these all back on. I don't need the mirror. I don't need the oriental long curve, so that's going to go. I do need the revolve. And the join does not do what I want it to do, so I don't think I'm going to use the join. Possibly not. Right, let's leave the join for now. And then we're going to plug that into that. And again, we're going to get a crazy amount of these pieces on the top, but we're not going to worry about that for now. And instead of grouping procedurally, we're for now going to group non-procedurally. So that's going to be, I can in fact just select it here and say group. Right. Group that. And that's going to be chocolate. And the reason you don't want to do this is if you increase the resolution on this roof, it chases a number. And I've selected a specific point, and each point has a number. But if you change the number of points, that means the number changes. So it's not the ideal way of doing it. I wonder something else. Did I try and put this in the wrong group? I might have. I did. I put it in the wrong group. Okay, so I tried to put the group in the source group rather than the target points, which means, so what does, to explain what that means, the source group is if, let's say, I had a bunch of different objects, the tiny roof piece ones I found by PureRef, I could probably show you guys. Where did I go with it? That's always the million-dollar question. Where did PureRef disappear off to at the top? Right. So if I had, let's say, multiple of these, if I wanted to specify I wanted a specific one of these, I could say source group. So I did in fact not want source group, I wanted target group. And that user operator error per usual. Right, but I don't in fact want the bottom one, I want the top one. So that'll be that one. And then I don't want that to show the bottom. Where's that coming from? Right, we have liftoff. We've got that working. Now I'm going to do a merge so we can see everything. And now if I'm right, that'll mean if I change the value on this group, it won't matter. It'll still copy to the top, in theory. But that's in theory. We'll see if it actually works. And brilliant, it has. So let's see. What do you call that line? No, it's a resample. Okay, so if we change the segments, it no longer closes. That's pretty normal. But turn that off. Right. It does in fact work. It does work. Which is very relieving. I thought I wasted everyone's time, including my own. So we've got that working. And next thing we need is, it's too small, right? So let's transform that. And I chose a random value, and that was 0.1, maybe 0.5. That is way too big. To 5. That's about right. The next part that's kind of bothering me is I don't like that shape. So, going back here, we're going to thicken that up. Downside of that is we now have a hole at the bottom, which we also don't quite want. Let me think. So this comes to a sharp point, but on the concept it does not. So let's change the shape of the roof. So that's going to attribute drop. And no, not that. Okay, so we need to lift that up. And we've officially got a roof. It's not perfect. Hello Elementor, how are you? So we've got the roof and we've got a thing on top of the roof. The only downside we have right now is if I change the shape of the roof over here, the bottom of this roof piece does not change accordingly. I get you, thanks. Houdini is brilliant. I'm very happy when I'm in Houdini. I'm not so happy when things don't work, as it often does in Houdini, but that's half the fun. Figuring it out. It is difficult on the stream though, I will say. In fact, some of you might have heard the story before, but I learned Houdini from a mentor. So I didn't follow tutorials to learn it. I had somebody that live demoed stuff for me, and he told me I should feel very lucky because he does not do live demos of Houdini because things go wrong. And it's a lot of back and forth, right? So you try something, sometimes it works, but if it doesn't, you need to figure out why it not work, why it doesn't work. So it's a process, but it's a very fun process. So right, we've got that working. Now I don't know if the size, shape, or anything of this is correct in order to actually work as a roof. So we'll see. Let's template that. Right. Now, the next thing I'm kind of thinking about is I'm not sure whether I might want a top face there. I probably do. Also, sorry for the background noise. My dog is hungry, but somebody will come and get him and feed him. So, sorry about it, but it will get sorted and he will be okay. Right, so we've got that. I do not currently have a top face for that, so let me go up and see if we can get an end cap. And we can. So we've got that, and then conveniently there is a point in the middle. So we could copy 2 points. Now there's a way of finding the center of a face in order to get a point, and there's a specific node for it. As common theme again, I cannot remember how that's done, but we're going to work with it. So we've got that, and I wanted to copy to the top. So let's say that is going to be a copy to points, but we need a way to specify which point to copy to. So let's see. Those are a lot of points. Let me think. There is a note for it. What was it called? No, it's not center. It would have been so convenient if it was called that. But it was a long shot. So, it is a form of a group. It's not a combine. It's not a group promote. It's not a range, because a range allows you to select something in between two numbers, basically. So it's not that. What was it called? I could open up a file, but I'm afraid that if I open up that file, my entire computer is going to crash and burn, because that file was my first attempt at doing procedural modeling in Houdini. But I really want that node, so I'm quickly going to see if I can find it. And then I have to find the right version as well, so that's going to be interesting. Let's think. That was probably that one. There's a chance. There's a chance it was not that one. Let me think. Which one would it have been? Right, so let's see. Could have been that one. And it's opening. Let's hope. Because it was a really big environment, and I did some things procedurally, some of it not, and it's also got things like volumetrics and too many lights and all those things. So it's going to come with its challenges, but we'll see. It's currently loading. If it opens, fantastic. If not, we're going to manually select the points. Now, I am very strongly against manually selecting points in Houdini because it's Houdini and we want a procedural. But for the sake of time, in this case, I might do it that way and then fix it at a later stage. Depending on how it goes. So, okay, so we do in fact not want the boat. We want, oh, but it's not the door either. It's not the door either. Or do I use it in the door? I do not. Okay, not this file. We're going to close that one down. If it's going to let me. That's going to be discard and quit. Okay, so it's not that one. It's going to be before the cleanup, so it's going to be that one. Hopefully this doesn't take too long to open, but we'll see. Right, so for getting that, let's start thinking about how we're actually going to specify. Probably going to be at the start. So it's probably going to be at this area here, where we've just got this. And that's going to be this piece. And we don't want it to copy to the top and the bottom, we only want it at the top. So it's going to be before the copy and transform. It's going to be before the copy and transform. And then we've got another file. And this file is in fact a cluttered mess. A broken cluttered mess, but we'll again work with it. I do vaguely remember how the system works. Vaguely. So, top third. I forgot that that can even subtract. Okay, so top third. Let's try and break this apart and actually see what we're working with. So it's a block out. Oh wow. It's always rough opening up old work, and I mean really old work. Right. It's also obnoxiously big. So I need to mini tower scale. So it's definitely about this. How's this getting grouped? I manually selected this. Why did I manually select this? Okay, so it's not that. It could be this. Alright, so where is this target group coming from? That is that node. Okay, so that's copying to all those. It's not going to be as simple as I thought. It's not going to be as simple as I thought. Right. Transform does that. These all feed into these. That goes there. Right, so what are we doing here? We're selecting the bottom, that's fine, blasting it out. What does this do? What does this do? Roof transfer, okay. Okay, so it's not that. It's not that, but that is closer to the thing. So, see. Let us see. I think I'm wasting too much time here, but let's let's see if I can figure this out. It is definitely a copy to points. That much I do know. But the part I'm struggling to figure out is how to specify the center. Alright. So that is that. Blast. I found it. I've officially found it. And it's, of course, code. But I do not understand this code. Let's just see what it does. Hello, how are you? We're struggling here. By we, I mean me. I am struggling. I am officially struggling. But we're going to see if I can get this to work. Now, the downside of copying code around is I personally did not, in fact, write this code. So, and I do not understand code. So, we're going to see if this actually makes sense. But, let's get that file, the actual file we're working with. And I'm firstly going to test it with just a plane. Not a plane, it's called a grid. So we're going to test that with a grid. Let's see. Right, so we've got the grid. And then I'm going to reduce the number just to see how this actually works. And that's going to be an attribute wrangle. Wrangle. Right. And then that's going to go to that, and that's going to go there. That in fact does not do what I want it to do. Because, let's see, let's go back. Let's go back. So, what do we have? We've got a blast that makes it so we only have these 4 squares. Reverses, and then it takes the center of all of those. So why does it not work? It's working based on a group. So should I group this? Primitive, primitive. Ah, okay. So we've got progress. So it's basically it's specifying points here. We want primitive, and that's also going to be a primitive, and that works. That officially worked. Right. So let's see if it works on anything else. Hopefully. Not quite. And not quite. So let me just see where it's placing these points. Right, so it's placing the points in the center of every single face. We only want the center of the top one. So that's progress. We've officially got progress. So for cylinder, we do want end caps. Or do we want to, what's it called though? It's not cap. Is it called cap? No? Yeah, polycap, polycap, polycap. It's called a polycap. So let's do a polycap. Don't die. Right, so we're going to do a single polygon, and that's going to be what? Can we get a group from that? Patch group. We've got a group. Hello, how are you? Sorry, I'm trying to keep track of the chat and working, but I forget to check the chat. I'm sorry, guys, but if I miss a message, I'll get to it. Hopefully, hopefully I'll figure it out. I'm not very good at multitasking. I know they say women are good at multitasking. I am in fact not very good at it. My brother, on the other hand, is. So sometimes it goes the wrong way. Right, so we've got a polyfill, we've got a patch group. So if we go and look, we actually have a group. We do not know which group is which at this stage. So that's going to be patch. So that's better, but that's not quite what I want. Paint group. Don't want edge loops. Single polygon, unique points, object point normals. I really don't want everything else to be there. How am I going to fix this? Right, so the part I actually want is in the center here. So in theory, I could create another group that only selects the center of that with a bounding box. Or, what do the normals do? Not a whole lot of lot. Do these guys actually not have any normals? Of course they don't. Right, we do not have normals, so that's not going to work. Let's try another group. We can't group the center at this stage because at that point there's no points in the center. So we have to group it and then blast it potentially. Not the most procedural way of doing this, but we're going to run with it. So that's going to be group. And then the group is going to be by bounding region. And that's going to conveniently select what we need, and that's going to be points. So once we've got that, we can blast everything excluding the group, potentially. So that's going to be delete not selected, and that's going to be group. Right, I don't technically want the bottom. How am I going to get rid of the bottom? We're going to reduce the bounding region. So that's going to be 0.2 maybe. Right. Officially got what I believe to be the top point. It might in fact be the bottom point. If it's the bottom point, we're going to have to rework. Right, now we've got a utter mess of a network here, so bear with me. But so that's going to be, we want to copy this to that to this. Okay, but that's not at the top yet. Right, okay, so we need this to be after the transform. So let's try that way around. Okay, so we're getting one at the top and one at the bottom right now, which is also not what we want. So, how are we going to combat that? How are we going to combat that? Not so simple. Especially when your nodes start getting mixed together. Right, so let's just go over how this works. So we've got the point at the stage where it's still at the bottom. Right, okay. So up till that point, everything is still somewhat correct, except for the fact that that is the bottom of the lantern, not the top. And if we go further down, this in fact rotates 180 and moves up. So how do we get rid of the bottom folder? So in theory we want the transform, but we don't want the copy. Oh, but this is going to be messy. It's going to be messy, but it might work. So let's take that. We want only one copy. Just see what we have. Right, so that is. Let's see if I get rid of that. Really, is it not going to let me? How are we going to approach that? Well, if it was simple and easy, everyone would do it, right? So, right, let's just see what we have here. So that's that. We do have the point in the center there. I've also removed a lot of stuff that I actually don't want to remove. So that's going to go to there. So that's working again. Let's start, right? Let's start. Right. From there, we still need the center. We still need the center. That does give us the center, but that. What if I'm really stupid? I'm making this insanely difficult when it doesn't have to be. Right, because let me explain where my thought process just went. Now that's another thing about Houdini. You tend to overcomplicate, and if you overcomplicate, you're going to have a tough time when you don't have to have a tough time. We're very lucky in the sense of we have everything in the center of the world, which means I don't need to worry about left to right, front to back motion, right? So I can just move the hair roof up. I don't have to worry about left to right. I don't have to copy to points. I can just move it up the same way I did for the platform at the top and the bottom. It's identical the same. So I'm going to delete all of these. I do in fact not need a copy to points even. I can just go and copy, what do you call it? The height parameter, because I do want this to change as it goes to the height. And that's another copy to point. I don't need that. So that's going to be a transform node. And that's going to be in height, so paste relative reference. Now the only problem is it's not taking the height of the pedestal into account. Now there is a way to, I wonder if you can multiply two values or add it, potentially. Let's add a plus and test that. Let us test that. So we did build in a control for the pedestal bar. Now, this is something I have not attempted, and as I've mentioned before, I'm not exactly a coder. If I had even a basic knowledge of code right now, this would be significantly easier. No, that is not what I want. That is, in fact, not what I want. Where is that value? Where is that value? So we're going to take copy parameter, and that's going to be based relative references. But that only gives me. That's highly inconvenient. There's got to be a way to do that. There has got to be. Okay, but we're not going to do that because apparently that does not work. So let's delete channels and just start off with the basic. The basic part that we know works. So that is the height. Height does in fact work. We don't need to get rid of that. So that's going to be paste relative reference. And maybe we can take the height of the pedestal and put that into the pivot. Now that's a bit of a don't do it, but we can in theory put it in the pivot and it'll work. And the reason I say you don't typically, or it's not recommended to do that, is you don't want to mess with the pivot because it can make things harder at a later stage. Now that did not help me very much at all. It did move the pivot, but it didn't increase the height accordingly. Right, so that's not going to work. So in theory, we can do times 0.2. No, 1.2. Ideally, we'd have a way of saying basically combine the value of the height of the actual lantern plus the height of the pedestal, combine the two and be on your way. But that's not currently an option, so we're going to work with it. So that's too much. Maybe 0.02 will do the trick. Let's try 0, not double 0, 0.2. No. It's not enough. 5. I hate using these types of values. Let's try 0.1. No, too much. 0.8. I just want to see what it looks like on top for now. Right, so as we're already busy with the transform here, actually that's not at the right place. But let's do maybe that size and just combine everything so we can see what we're working with. And I don't want to see the dots. Well, that is progress. It's not perfect. I think the roof might be a bit tall in comparison to the rest, and maybe the shape isn't quite right. So let's quickly change that. So that's going to be, which is this? I think that might be this one. It should appear to be this one. Right, so that is in fact the length. So let's do that, and then we're going to change the shape a little bit. That's going to wide this, so we can get lots of interesting shape roofs, by the way. But that's not quite what we want to do right now, so do we? That's too short. That is in fact too short. So let's do 1, maybe. 1 is a nice number. Let's do 1. Right, so we've got that working. And now if we change the height, the thing on top moves. The only thing we don't have right now is the width. So, in fact, we've got more than just a width problem, I think. But let's see. Let's see what still works, and then we can go from there. Right, so for those of you that were here at the beginning of the stream, you'll know that I pivoted the archways. I switched them. They were, maybe I can show that. Was it at this stage? No. At some point I flipped them over. Has to be at this point. It was in fact at this point. So now I've broken everything. Let's see. I do want to fix that though. I really want to fix that. Okay, we're going to leave it. But bottom line is, this is upside down. So I had the archway flipped the other way initially when I built this entire node network. And then I realized today, well, that's facing the wrong way. But now the problem with the way I've flipped it is it broke everything. So my height now goes down instead of up. So we've got a lot of fixing to do. We've got a lot of fixing to do. So how are we going to fix that? How are we going to fix it? Let's start with actually taking this down to 0 and 0. If we now take the height, okay, brilliant, that works. We've got something working right now. It wasn't too difficult to fix. So we've got that working. I don't want that templated, I want that visible. So height works fine. Now my problem comes with width. That no longer goes with. So we're going to copy the width parameter and we're going to go to scale, which for the roof is where? I believe it's here, and that's going to go into not uniform, it's going to go into X and Z. It's going to go into X and Z. So that's going to be page relative reference, same here. And that is in fact a better size in any case. So now in theory, we go down to the control with adjust accordingly. The only downside is kind of squishes the top a bit. And Houdini is frozen. But at that point it's fine. So to counteract that, we could potentially add a height control at this point that only adjust the height of the roof, and then we can kind of decide whether that should adjust the height of the entire roof or just the top piece, because it could just be the top piece. So let me just quickly go back to that transform, and I'm going to test. I think in this case we'd want two separate ones. We'd want one that adjusts the height of the bottom part, and then we'd want one that adjusts the height of the top one. So that means we're going to have to go further to the top. But first let's build the control, right? So that's going to be edit parameter interface. It's going to be a float. We're going to need two of them. The one is going to be the roof. That's going to be roof height. And then the other one is going to be, why did you do that? Copy, paste. Right. What are we going to call that? Roof top, why not? My naming is not on point tonight, but we'll work with it. Right, so that's rooftop, both of them, and then accept that, and then we're going to copy that parameter and paste it into the line height for this roof, and it's going to break everything, but do not worry. We're going to go back down here, and we're going to change that value to 1, and it's magic and it's fixed. So then we're going to take the rooftop, copy that, and we're going to paste it into the length here. And again, everything breaks, but that is fine. So we're going to increase the height there. Now, if we increase the width and we're not happy with the height for the rooftop, for example, we can increase that like magic. And that's why Houdini is brilliant. But having said that, I am biased, so take what I say with a grain of salt. I do love the software, even if it frustrates me. So let's put a value of 4, which is the same as what it was initially, because I am quite happy with the proportions on that. Right, so we've got that working, and we've got. I've just realized I've spent 2 hours on a roof. Well, I say 2 hours. Hour and 40 minutes. And I overcomplicated it so much. If I redid this, this would take 5 minutes. Anyway, again, this is why Houdini is both brilliant and not so brilliant at the same time. Right, next. Anything else I want to implement right now? We can also repurpose the this piece at the top here to some extent to get these. Now ideally we'd have the pillars in place already, because if we have the pillars in place, we can copy it to the top of the pillars. Right, so how are we going to do that? Let's just get a basic pillar. And again, I need to organize these days because it's very difficult working in such a cluttered file. Don't do it. So that's going to be what are we going to use? A cube. Choose cube. And that's going to be what else? Going to need a cube, and the height is going to be determined by height of the height of the lantern, so that's going to be that, and we're going to paste it into that one, and we're going to move the centers, so we're going to paste that into that as well. No, paste references. And that's going to be times 0.5. Right. Now, in theory, this should be the same height as the lantern. So let's check that. Let's see. Where is it? Down here. Right, so we've got that, and that works. Right, so that is pillars sorted for the most part. We are, however, going to make it significantly smaller. So let's just do a transform for that. Transform. And this is going to be a very basic pillar, right? So we're just trying to get something there. So that's going to be 0.25 maybe. 0.25. Too big. 0.1. Right, so we've got that, and then we're going to copy to points. In this case, we're going to have trouble, but we'll work with it. So that's target points to copy to, so that's just going to be that. Now, the point we want to copy to is the bottom vertices on the original cylinder. So that's going to be this one. Now, ideally, and I really wish Houdini had a way, actually they do have it, but it's only on the extrude way of grouping, let's say, just the bottom points by default and built into a node. That would have been absolutely brilliant. But although Houdini is brilliant, it's not that brilliant. So we're going to go with, let's say, group, not group by range, just as a normal group. And that's going to be keep by bounding region. And the size is going to be determined by the width of the, so that's going to be copy parameter width of the lantern, and that's going to be pasted into the size. So that's going to be paste reference and paste relative reference. Now I want this to group points, and that's going to be pillar placement. Why not? Pillar placement. Right. Got that. Now, if I take this and I plug it into down here, copy target points, copy to. Brilliant. Why is it too tall though? Why is it too tall? It's fine there. I did not specify a group, so it's copying to all the points. So that's going to be target group. Brilliant. Combine all of that, and we have officially got pillars. Now I'd actually want them not to sit like that. Maybe I'd want them to be taller. That, or I could copy top to the and bottom pieces like that. Choices. But I think I'm going to leave it at that for today. And then I'm going to sort out this file before I try and open it next week. And then also charge my earphones because we're working on my laptop's audio here and that is less than great. So, in conclusion, thank you everyone for being here today and watching me struggle, but also having a lot of fun. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day.